first, I will give you a little overview of all measures the German government gives us companies as a tool and the freelancers to go to the Corona crisis best as possible. So the total volume of all 8 measures of our government for direct relief efforts, direct payments, as aid is 353 billion euro, and guarantees like loan and so on, about 820 billion euros. It's huge, I think, yeah, for a little country. The most of the 8 measures concentrated on tax, reducing tax. So the general tax rules for relievers that it's possible to refund it, partially the prepayments, or amount of advanced tax payments can be adjusted not to pay so much like the months before. The tax office grant deferrals of tax debts and enforcement measures are waived. And at all, lowering the VAT. The sales tax was lowered for everything, all trades and goods, from 19 to 16%. And the hope is or was that it's possible to create or activate more business after the lockdown. Yeah, in gastronomy, it's not our branch, from 9 to 7%. There's a directly liquidity support. It's the most possible. The most important thing for us companies is to save our liquidity or get liquidity from outside. So all companies that are reporting a loss of year due to the consequences of Corona pandemic may offset for the losses with the profit of 2019. Normally you can do it with the next year, but not in the past, but now it's possible. So I have to switch the page. So in Germany, it's possible to get loans from the Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau. It's a little bit like a state-owned national bank, and you get money and have to pay not really interest rates. They're near 0%. Yeah. And there are some direct help for small business and freelancers. They get 9,000 euros for 3 months or more, but it's not our business. But at the end, it's important for everybody to get help. And at the end, if they have a problem, they have a better condition to go in basic social aid to pay their living accommodation and be supported in this living things. And the most important of all is the possibility to go in short time. I know I think it's an instrument that it's special for German, possible to do it in Germany. I don't know if you can do the same in other countries, but short time use many companies in Germany, and they do it now. So the government make a discussion that you can do it to the end 2021. Normally it was possible only to do it for 3 months. And this instrument was the only instrument we used for our company, because all other aid or supporting you have to pay back. And so it's not really a help, but we have no problem with some insolvent topics or so on. So short time is very complicated, many rules, and it's possible that the employees of our company or the other companies are at home to 100% or more than 10% of the working time. And the company only have to pay the hours they're really at work, and the difference for the payment of the per month, 60 to 67% in the first 3 months, they are paid from the government. So the companies have not to pay it, the government do it. And this is a aid. It works very fast. You can do it since March, the first month of the Corona time, and our employees go in short time between 15 up to 30%. And so we are able we do it from May to end of September. And so it was able for us to save €500,000 only with this instrument. Yeah. In Germany, our branch, in Germany, our branch have a special situation, a little bit like the medicine, logistic, and so on. So everything business with media and content, especially the newspaper, are very high supported. It's defined that we are important in terms of infrastructure. So in time of the lockdown, with all rules, nobody was allowed to go outside, only to buy some things or so we all had a certificate to go to work, to do everything, and it was always possible to drive with our newspapers to all logistic partners and so on. So we have no restricted things, more supported things, and this was very important for us. So if anybody was in short time from another company, it's allowed to work for us, and all money he gets, then he's on our payroll. He don't must count it against short time money. So there are so many measures of the government in total, and especially for our printing branch and media branch. So we are very well supported. And now is a new discussion since week in the parliament to make the media branch more important, like in the past and now, because yeah, you know, there are many people that say Corona is not really dangerous, and the earth is flat and all around and whatever, all of these things. And in this time, it was very important to have well written reporting from the journalists and so on. And in all of this serious view, the parliament want to make the media industry stronger. They said it's so very important in crisis time. And so we are waiting what the parliament make with this view in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Yücel. Very informative. So we'll hand over to Anna, and then you will be with us in the discussion later on. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I want to share some slides with you. First of all, regarding the Bonnier Group, where I work, but also then regarding the subsidies and what the government in Sweden are doing for media support eventually. Just a sec. That didn't work out fine. I hope you can all see my slides now. As I said, I will first carry on a short presentation of the Bonnier Group, and then I will talk a little bit more about the support to media that we heard a bit from the German side from Josef. And I will talk about the Swedish region as such. The Bonnier Group is a family-owned media company. We have been in the operation for over 200 years. We started as a bookshop in Denmark, and it is fully owned by the Bonnier family and their family members. Now we are based in Sweden, and we have an operation in 14 countries. And we span from all the daily newspaper that we own. It's both on national, regional, and really in small areas where we represent newspapers and editorial departments. And we also span among to books, ebooks, and we also have, for example, educational tools. We have e-learning systems, and we have a lot of ventures and, of course, real estate service. I work for Bonnier News, where the printing plans and the daily news are distributed and produced. We do everything from daily newspapers, as I just said. We are also publishing a lot of magazines. For example, you maybe know about the Swedish Sköna Hem or the Danish Bo Bedre. That is our titles. As I said, we also have an online educational service, and we also represent B2B media and other services for other companies. We have a Swedish national daily called Dagens Nyheter. We also have a financial daily called Dagens Industri in Sweden. And we also own part of Börsen, which is the financial daily in Denmark. For the Evening Standards, we publish Expressen with their editorials Göteborgs Tidning and Kvällsposten in the southern part of Sweden. And for regional newspapers, an example of that is Sydsvenskan, that is produced in Malmö, in the southern part of Sweden. But there is also regional newspapers like Sundsvalls Tidning, Gävle Dagblad, Arbetarbladet, and so on. Bonnier News manage 8 coldset facilities in Sweden, where we print both external and internally. We also contract 2 external printing facilities, one in Umeå in the very north of Sweden, or not very north, but a northern printing plant that exists, and in the middle of Sweden on the west coast, and that is Borås, that we before 2019 actually was a part of the ownership for. Except for that, we, as I said, carry on 8 coldset facilities today. I think maybe the most famous one is Bold Printing Stockholm, a large investment we did in the late 80s that was installed and was in place in the early 90s. We had 3 press halls. We had a huge Manroland Coleman installation. We still run the Coleman news press. The same goes for Malmö, where we today have 2 printing plants. one in former Malmö Tidningstryck and the one in the original Sydsvenskan printing facility. We also, about 1 year ago, we bought Mitt Media, which is an editorial and a media company that was based in the middle of Sweden. And from that we acquired also the printing plants in Sundsvall, which is carried out with the Cortina, a dry offset printing plant, and also a printing plant in Östersund, Örebro, and in Falun. And now the latest thing we did was to buy Hall Media, and with Hall Media in Sweden, we also acquired the printing plant in Jönköping. In total, we are printing around 300 million copies internally, and that is divided into approximately 50 internal titles, but we also have free sheet titles that we print on a regular basis. That was a bit about Bonnier. Going back to the press subsidies and what the Swedish government has done so far. Just to start, I wanted to give you a view of how it's normally divided with the media press support. And this is non-related to the COVID-19 virus. The media press subsidy scheme is divided into two parts in Sweden. First of all, it's the main operational subsidy for newspapers, and that's for the editorial part. And then there is a smaller part that consists of coordination between distribution schemes for printed newspapers. And that runs for 68 million euros for the year of 2020, i.e. this year. And this is approximately the same as 680 million Swedish kronor. When it comes to the COVID-19 support and the support in response to the spread of COVID-19, there were two different actions taking place in Sweden during the spring. The first announcement came in the early days of April. And if you remember everything like I remember it, it was then that we had this very heavy spread and everyone was so worried. So in the first announcement, we had an additional media support of 20 million euros. That's equivalent of 200 million Swedish kronor, which 50 million euros was in distribution support, and that was only lasting for 3 months. And the 3 months, I think, that they choose in the end was July, August, and September. And then the last 5 million euros, or the 50 million Swedish kronor, that was actually for doubling the current support that was in the previous slide, as you saw, for the coverage of geographical areas where there were weak or non-existent journalist coverage, i.e. those areas that has difficulties, first of all, maybe to use the internet, but secondly, also didn't have the regular mail distribution that would cover the daily newspaper to come. Connected with these two reinforcement of the subsidy, we also had two regulatory changes. And the first one was that we did receive a system of advance payment, and that was that we could actually get through to the money that was already decided upon for the general subsidies. And then the second, that is a very important condition for getting the media support, was that the requirement that 55% of all editorial material must be produced in-house, that was removed from the conditions, and that has also been a big help. Then, after a couple of weeks, on May 8th, came the second announcement of additional support. And that was the 50 million euros, and that equivalent to 500 million Swedish kronor. And that was a temporary media support for a year of 2020. And it was really to try to support more than the news media and more than the printed media alone. I think the aim was to strengthen the economic conditions for editorial activities, and that could be in any form. And also to ensure that the public's access and assessment to news was really covered when we had this dramatic increase of COVID-19 cases. What happened then was that we did this with a big hurry. So how this has been distributed and paid out is kind of a very complicated issue, but it is possible to get it through open sources in the government.se site for the Swedish government. This was all that I wanted to say around the subsidies. When it comes to the Bonnier Group, we can unfortunately not share any information of what we have received, but I think that anyway will go public after a while in Sweden.
Anna, did you want to say some more things, or what?
I think I will stop there. If there are any questions, I'm really happy to answer them.
Okay, we'll take them afterwards. Okay, Mr. Roy, you're next up.
Hi, Indy, and good evening from India. And most of the part of the world will be morning, afternoon, evening. In India, COVID-19 came a month late, about a month late than the other part of the world. And while in the month of February, March, we are having conferences and talking to our counterparts in Italy and in New York, also in say South China Morning Post in Hong Kong, or SCMP, or Singapore Press Holdings in Singapore. People are talking about working from home. People are talking about having certain amount of restrictions of people coming into the press, making press teams and all that. All of a sudden, India got the first COVID infection in the month of, I think, end of March. And about that time, 23rd of March onwards, there was a lockdown. And the lockdown went for month after month after month, 5 months. Now, this lockdown actually created a different scenario for India and than any other country in the world. If you look at in India, we had a lot of people reading newspapers. Our company, Times of India Group, used to publish and print and publish 6.5 million copies every day of our English, which is the number one. And then you have the financial papers, Economic Times, Times of India, and then you have many language papers. But with the imposition of the lockdown, initially this we got a big hit in terms of circulation. Then gradually, in part of the region of the India, south and east part of India, things started opening up with certain government support and certain support from the local administration. We started printing and distributing in those areas. But our major chunk of revenue and circulation was from the big cities like Western India and Northern India, Delhi, Mumbai, big cities, Bangalore. There we had big challenge of people had a stigma about, newspaper may be carrying the virus. So end of the day, we had a lot of suffering with the circulations. People got out of habit of reading newspapers. So those are the challenging days. We kept on pushing and convincing people and kept on gaining circulations, gaining revenue. And now, once the unlock started, we will now today talk about what happened after unlock. So I'll just share my screen, and I know whether you can see it. I hope you can see it. Yeah. Can you have a slideshow? Yeah. Okay. So if you typically see the regaining subscription was one of the big problem. Distribution was a challenge because there was many areas of pockets of in a containment zone. In a containment zone, you have a few infections. The administration will close that area up and nobody will be able to distribute in that area. So there were hundreds and thousands of pockets of containment zone in India. So there we could not distribute. Social stigma that there were very early some social media, videos that went around that newspaper can carry the virus, and that created a big impact in terms of fear factor in the mind of people. The cost, of course, cost is a big factor because when your number of copies you print comes down, your fixed cost and other cost goes up and your survival becomes difficult. Your pagination comes down. You have to just kind of do away with cover price or maybe little bit of advertisement revenue. That's a big challenge. Impact on business, of course, it's an impact of business because it has to have collaboration between different publishers in zones, and macroeconomic impact that we had. So now let's look at what Government of India and some of the measures they have done. Like many other countries, Government of India also offers certain amount of funding, loan, or maybe deferred payment for small scales, medium scale industries. Certain tax filing for corporates and personal tax filing was postponed by, I think, 3 to 4 months, so that people can have more time to file their taxes and etc. But overall, we have to kind of fight a battle on our own. Publishing companies, newspaper companies had a tough time that round. So if you talk about, we tried a lot of different persuasion through WHO, some other videos saying the newspapers are completely safe to read during pandemic, and there's not a single case of COVID virus infection by reading newspapers. But still, it took time to pick up the numbers. And our Prime Minister of India, he said that newspaper is a link between government and the people. He gave very good statements, which actually, little bit late, but he started giving positive feedbacks about newspapers, and he's a very popular leader. So it helped a lot in terms of getting the circulations number back. The biggest problem or biggest challenge we had was the circulation number getting back. So he had said some good words about newspapers. This is our Minister of Information and Broadcasting, and he actually reads 20 newspapers every day, and he went into the press, told the people that I'm reading newspapers, I have no problem, so why people don't use newspapers. And also, since all the newspapers in India prints government advertisements, government payment also a big matter of survival in newspaper industry. So he had some huge amount of dues which government did not pay earlier to the publishing companies. Now he expedited that payment, and payment was done at a much faster pace, and that helped newspaper companies. If you go to different regions of India, Gujarat is one of the state of the west part of India, where you had large number of infections. There also you have the chief minister of the state had helped us by taking care of some of the concerns of ours, and this was done by him. He gave an open statements and tried to help, telling people that if you want to read the real news, newspaper is the only source through which you should get your information. In Bengal, this chief minister of Bengal, West Bengal, this is the eastern part of India. Here, she actually, on the third day of lockdown, she actually came out in public and showed people how to distribute newspaper. He said that you should make a social distancing. You should not, insert on the street or somewhere else. You should be hygienic, and people should read newspapers. So supported. And from the day one, we had very high number of circulation in that part of the country, eastern part of the country. So some of the Chief Minister of West Bengal has helped us. In Kerala, another state, we are more than 90% circulation gained back. Some of the publication, local language publication there is gained more than 100%. They actually recovered completely from the COVID numbers. And this is the Chief Minister of Kerala. Initially, he also did a lot of things for making sure that newspaper is printed, distributed, and all over India. Ministry has made sure newspaper is considered to be essential services. So printing, distribution of newspaper has never been a challenge for us. But in few states like Mumbai or Maharashtra and Pune, few of the region, we had problems. Almost a month and a half, we could not print and distribute. Rest of the part of India, we could print and distribute, and we got good government support. In Delhi, that's our capital, state capital, in India's capital, Delhi, where he also talked about the Chief Minister there also talked about and created different police forces to support distribution of papers in time block time, and he said newspaper essential services. So he also helped. And last but not the end, I mean, this is the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Our most, circulated paper is in Mumbai, Bombay city. And this was the largest lockdown we had, challenges we had for home-to-home distribution, door-to-door distribution. Here, Chief Minister himself came out and say from that you should distribute newspaper from, after some months. He said that you can now distribute newspapers door-to-door. So that was more or less, different government and different chief ministers of states, administrative people have helped us kind of, pushing newspaper circulation and printing going on. So more or less, that is the thing I wanted to share with you, the government support. But more or less in terms of revival of the newspaper business is more or less you're on your own. You have to be strong and you have to be cost conscious. You have to be championing cost, championing your newspaper, downsizing it if it's required, and then go back to normal hopefully next year. So that is the scenario in India, and I'd like to give it back to Ingi for any questions that can be addressed.
Thank you, Snehasis. It was good, very good to hear from you. Can I have Gary Hughes now tell us a little bit about the situation in Canada, what's happening there, and his point of view. Gary.
Okay, thanks, Ingi. I don't have a presentation. I'm going to just talk a little bit. I'm going to give a different perspective. We're not a newspaper. We're a printer. Newspapers are one of our major customers, the Globe and Mail being the primary customer. I'm going to give you a perspective of what the government in Canada has done to assist some of the businesses, and specifically how has it affected us as a print sector. So TC Transcontinental is actually a printing and flexible packaging operation with about a little over $3 billion in revenue. We have operations in Canada, US, the UK, Mexico, Latin America, and about 8,500 employees. I'm responsible for the print sector, so I'm going to specifically talk about the print sector. The flexible packaging is primarily in the US and actually has not been impacted financially as bad as the print sector. So what Canada did is they created the Canadian Economic Response Plan specifically for businesses, and it was really made up of two components. One was the emergency business account, and what that was for smaller businesses an interest-free loan. That one wasn't really applicable for TC Transcontinental, but it certainly was good for local newspapers owned by some smaller entrepreneurs. The biggest one, and the one that really affected or assisted Transcontinental, was the emergency wage subsidy. And what this is, the goal of it is to protect jobs, help employers retain employees as much as possible, and help businesses. The subsidy consisted of a base wage for employees whose revenue has been impacted by the pandemic. So there was some specifics associated with it, but if we could prove that there was a 30% plus decline in revenues year over year, then we were eligible for the wage subsidy, which paid up to 75% of the employee's wage. It was paid to the company, and then the company performed its own remuneration to the employees. That was primarily the two key components for a business perspective, but the other components that really improved or affected our operation considerably was when we temporarily laid off employees, the government came up with what's called the emergency response benefit. And what that was is they paid $2,000 a week per eligible employee to the emergency response benefit program. Unfortunately, that just ended, but things have moved over now into employment insurance, or in some countries you might know it as unemployment insurance, but the payout on that is fairly similar to the emergency response benefits. So again, the key of the economic plan really is to maintain, for us, it's to maintain jobs in our printing sector, to support the essential services provided by our clients. Essential services being newspapers and retail flyers. Both were deemed to be essential services. Obviously, with the newspaper, it was important to get accurate information out to the community. The retail flyers were considered essential service as well, the majority of them being for grocery stores and such. But for us, it provided financial support for approximately 1,600 temporary layoffs that were laid off in March, or reduced work schedules to limit how many people were temporarily laid off. We modified schedules to reduce the amount of hours each employee worked, but it was able to keep us from laying off more than we had to. This financial support for the individuals is something that kept them whole until we were able to start bringing them back. In September, there was a gradual recovery in the printing volume for the sector, and that wage subsidy programs enabled Transcontinental to recall close to 60% of the employees who were temporarily laid off at the end of March. So those were the two key elements for us. Our biggest concern right now is to ensure that the newspapers continue to maintain themselves, because they're the primary distributor of retail flyers. And in some of the smaller communities, without the newspaper, they don't have the abilities to reach their customer. So that hopefully will be turning around a bit as we start to see some improvements on the COVID. Canada was affected pretty bad, but nowhere near as bad as some of the other countries. And we're hoping that we're starting to see a turn. We are in a bit of a increase in some of the problems that we've had here, but hopefully we've got a handle on that as we move forward. So, any questions? I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Gary. Also very knowledgeable, and but good to hear from a printer, not a newspaper or a meeting, because we tend to think about it as one thing, but it's not. In many cases, it's not the same thing. It's not one thing. It's two things. I would like to ask the whole group, and I'll go in round, but I have one question I would like to start the questions off with, and we will do the same round as you've spoken. Did the government in your country or your region recognize the importance of the medium being or a newspaper? How it was a newspaper and the importance of a newspaper in a society? If you could start, Joseph. You're muted.
Okay. Sleeping us. Yeah. In my at the end of my presentation, talk about that our government recognized it, that the newspapers are very important and the media industry is very important. And we have a special rule. We had a special rule, and they now are working on this, that we will be stronger and more protected in the future. But you can see it that it's important because our circulation is more stable like ever since the last years. So there are many new readers. We don't lose many readers in the print, but we won many readers in paid digital models. We have different models with different levels and so on. But I'll give you a number. In the beginning of the COVID crisis, at the end of last year, we had 76,000 paid digital contracts, and now we broke the number of 150,000, and the people are searching, the readers are searching for serious newspaper articles and not the things in the internet. Not everything in the social medias are bad or worse or whatever, but at the end you don't know what the sources are and so on. Yeah, we all talk about this many times, and I think the government is accepted the serious work of the serious media.
Thank you. Anna, what do you say in Sweden? We can't see you. Your camera's off.
Okay, so my camera is off as well. We'll see if I can get it moving now. Yeah, I think I'm on air. Basically, we can say, like you saw in my presentation, that the media support from the government has doubled. That means that for the year 2020, the subsidies was supposed to be 68 million euros, but what happened is that they actually doubled it. So we have an additional 70 million euros that is coming into the media. So that means that they are really taking us serious. On the other hand, that also means that they are not only supported the printed media, but as you may saw, they are also supporting the media that is coming out in other channels. So it could mean that if you have like a title that is not produced in paper, you will possibly get the support anyway. But what is so remarkable is, of course, that when it comes to the ad revenues, that has really gone down tremendously. That could never be supported by the government in any means, because the loss of ad revenues are so high for all of us media companies that we cannot be compensating by that. We had to compensate in order to cut costs by ourselves. So cutting costs has been one of the things we have done in order to survive. So we couldn't be able to survive only with press subsidies from the government. That wouldn't be possible. So one of my major work this year has been to try to find costs that we don't need, or find suppliers that we could renegotiate our deals with. And of course, cutting costs could also mean, and did mean, that we don't have many temp workers left. We don't have many consultants left. I think we have only been trying to adjust to the current situation in order to survive. And I think I speak for most of the media companies in the northern part of Europe.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. Snehasis, you mentioned it a little bit in your talk about how the specific Indian ministers in the government had supported without direct money, maybe, or direct funds. They just directed you maybe more
Moral support.
Yeah, something like that.
Moral support. No. What happened, Anna? What Anna said is a very, $1 million word. She said that the loss in advertisement revenue across the media companies, I think it's around the world, that could not be compensated by any kind of aid or any kind of support. Advertisement revenue will not be there if there's no economic activity. Consumption was not there. Those lockdowns, people could not go out to buy anything. So naturally, nobody will advertise in your newspapers or in media. So we lost huge amount of revenue in first 5-6 months. Then it started trickling in very, very slowly. So cost cutting, cost optimization, both in terms of manpower, salary cost, etc., and also part of the cost of our regular operational costs, fixed costs, etc. All of that we could optimize. We had to optimize to be able to survive these pandemic times. And now from the month of September and October, things are looking up a little better. But I think we have to do another set of cost optimization, another set of streamlining, maybe becoming more lean in our operations and in our manpower strategy. A lot of fields that has to be cut, and end of the year, maybe financial year end in the March of 2021, we'll be in a better, leaner shape to be able to cope with the challenges of COVID. Then from that point, we will again expect to grow in year 2021 for the rest of the year.
Gary, do you want to add to that?
Excuse me?
I said, Gary, do you want to add to that? Gary, thank you, Snehasis.
Gary.
Sure. The key for Transcontinental, like everybody else, everybody took a tremendous hit on revenue. The key for Transcontinental in Canada was the importance of the government indicating that newspapers were essential services, because that meant that we were still able to produce products. So not only the newspapers, but the retail flyers that I mentioned were considered essential services. We would have never survived on just subsidies alone. Obviously, they were a tremendous assistance, just like the employee efforts that they put forth for individuals. But as everybody pointed out, we had to learn how to become a lot leaner and a lot more efficient. There was certainly a huge effort applied towards cost reduction. And unfortunately, that also meant that not only are we leaner and more efficient, but we'll stay leaner and more efficient, which means that some of the laid off personnel will probably not be able to be coming back unless we start to see some growth in the market. We haven't seen that, but we are starting to see some improvements on page counts and draws and such from our clients. So for us, that's a good sign. But it's going to be, the world has changed quite a bit because of COVID, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. We have only 5 minutes, or actually 4 minutes left. So I'm going to ask you one more question. And we have a lot of questions, but we can't get to them all. I want to ask you one more question, and you have 1 minute each to answer it. It's like in a political debate now. But I would ask you, can a product innovation get us back on track towards pre-COVID? Can we have, I mean, how important is a product innovation in the newspaper world at the moment towards getting us back on track? And Joseph, you can start.
At the moment, we don't develop more innovations we did in the past. We do many things in technical things like 3D and so on, and from the view of a printer, not from the editor. And we concentrate as all of the focusing and concentrating is cost saving, cost cutting, saving liquidity, and to secure our production. The most thing we are afraid of is in the printing plant is that the health from the Munich, the health office of Munich come to us if you have a COVID positive, and order a big guarantee over us. This is the end of production, and in this time innovations are not a little bit in the background. But all the most innovation is that all of our working process changes. We made moderations in completely in home office like this. We have to learn new tools, not writing on big plates or whatever, or boards, and so it's again another learning. This is innovation, I think.
Thank you. Anna, you have half a minute.
I think the innovation goes for the digital transformation and the digital platforms that we are constantly developing within the Bonnier Group. And I'm really happy to say that we are also one of the few that are really putting our strength into keeping print, and that's very important for us. It's important for us not only to stand on the digital platforms, but also to be able to print our products. So we will keep on trying to do that into the bitter end.
Okay, Roy, very quick.
You know, we did a bit of innovation, product innovation, even during this COVID time. Once the market opened in September and October, this is the festival time, Diwali time in India, like Christmas in the West. We have the festival time going on right now, so we did a lot of.
Be cut off very shortly. So let
lot of GNPs, lot of glazed paper. We did a commercial, semi-commercial printing. We did a lot of that. Yes.
Okay, Gary.
Yeah, for us, innovations is a key element for us, because for us to become leaner, we are looking towards automation, and we've already put a significant amount of money into automation, and that's going to be the continued effort to continue to try and help reduce our labor costs.
Excellent. I want to use this opportunity to thank you all for a great presentations of everybody and for sharing this time with us. We are next up at 4 o'clock with distribution, so stay tuned for that. And thank you all, and thanks Christine Herker, who was also with us.
Thank you, Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, Anna.